Sometimes, good things take their time to become reality, and if there's one person who knows all about it, it's Squid Game creator Hwang Dong-hyuk. It took Dong-hyuk a whole decade to get the series off the ground. Here are some shocking things you didn't know about Squid Game, starting with the fact that the Squid Game was originally created to be a movie. The series creator revealed in an interview that he'd been inspired by the real Squid Game, his favorite game when he was a child. But at the same time, he chose the title because he thinks it symbolizes society. Dong-hyuk came up with the idea in the wake of the financial crisis in 2008 and the ongoing debt crisis in South Korea in 2009. The creator was struggling, to say the least. Being inspired by the characters in different mangas that Dong-hyuk was reading at the time, such as Kaiji, Battle Royale, and Liar Game, the director found himself wishing that he had a shot at entering a game like Squid Game for a chance to solve his own financial problems, which is why the series creator was able to write such vividly alive characters in horrible circumstances in such a believable way. It's not like Dong-hyuk had to dig very deep to imagine what they were thinking and feeling at the time. But despite that, the director was unable to find anyone who was willing to finance the project, until Netflix came along. That's when the movie was turned into a series instead. And Dong-hyuk added even more storylines, details, and characters to Squid Game to give the show a little more bulk. But as far out as the events in Squid Game seem, some things were inspired by very real, very tragic events. As you'll remember, it was a defining moment for Gi-hun to witness a friend die in a workers' strike at a major car factory. I mean, that would mess anyone up, I'd imagine. It certainly explained why the character was so haunted by the past. But did you know that this particular detail of Gi-hun's past was actually based on the 2009 strike at a Sangyong Motors plant in Korea? The strike ended up turning violent. But in contrast to the strike in Squid Game, the real-life event started as a protest over a crackdown on workers' rights that escalated to an occupation of the factory that lasted 77 days. Riot police showed up to put an end to the protest, using everything from water cannons to tear gas in an attempt to get rid of the protesters. The protesters, on their turn, responded with improvised slingshots, Molotov cocktails, and really anything they could find to throw and protect themselves from the assault. And just like in Squid Game, some workers were injured and some even died as a result of the sad events. But not every part of Squid Game was inspired by dark and sad things, even if the series did turn them dark and tragic. But according to numerous reports, the very first game of the show, Red Light, Green Light, is based on children's textbooks from the 70s and 80s, with the giant doll of a girl and everything. For the Dalgona challenge in the second game, an expert came on set to make a real Dalgona. That one spent a total of 3 days on set. And while the tug-of-war game looked very real, the makers actually used a machine on one side. This made it extra difficult for the actors, and simply impossible to win. Can you imagine having to fight a losing battle like that? I don't think you'd have to put up a lot of acting to convey frustration. And for the glass stepping game, the series creators didn't hold back either. They created a gap of about a meter high between the glass and the floor.
하고 낯설면서도 되게 감탄을 자아낼 만한 한 번도 보여주지 못한 어떤 그런 비주얼의 공간.
This means that the actors actually made a drop. Maybe not the one that characters in Squid Game are exposed to, but still, that's terrifying. Needless to say, a lot of time, effort, and care went into the making of the sprawling sets of Squid Game. And literally, nothing in the entire show was done without a purpose. For example, the playground set was intentionally made that huge. It served to trigger childhood memories associated with how huge playgrounds used to look when we were still small ourselves.
You know she would have died anyway.
That's lying.
And remember the dorm rooms? Many of the series' themes revolved around the objectification of human beings, and those weren't really dorm rooms at all. They were designed to look and feel exactly like a warehouse. And the bunk beds symbolized shelves, while at the same time reinforcing the themes of class and cutthroat competition in a capitalistic society. And speaking of symbolism, the coffins in Squid Game had a pretty bow tied around them because the creator of the game feels like he is gifting the contestants with their death. How crazy is that? And how did they even come up with all this stuff? It can't have been easy to construct all these elaborate designs, steeped in symbolism and deeper meaning. And if we're to believe production designer Chi Kyung-sun, it sure was a challenge to bring some of the most visually striking sets on television for the Netflix hit series. And in order to produce the most visual impact that perfectly reflected the position of the contestants, the production designer drew her inspiration from art. One of the most interesting pieces she used was a print by M.C. Escher called Relativity. It features trippy abstract staircases that go into all kinds of impossible directions, leading to nowhere and everywhere at the same time. It is one of Escher's most famous pieces, and one that you'll remember even if you only ever saw it once. She tried to show with the structure that grew out of this inspiration that the contestants are truly constricted by their surroundings, and that no matter which way they go, they're stuck now. I'll admit, it gave me goosebumps. The production designer also admitted that this particular set was by far the hardest one to put together, practically speaking. In an interview with Architectural Design, she explained that it had a lot of separate pieces that all had to fit together perfectly. It was absolutely a process of trial and error. But let me tell you, the end result was definitely worth it, don't you think? The masks in Squid Game weren't entirely original either. In fact, the masks that those scary guards were wearing were actually a combination of fencing masks and traditional Korean masks called hahotal. These are traditional masks native to the Haho village in Andong, Korea. They were actually selected as the number 121 national treasure in 1964. In short, these masks are used in a special ritual drama to the gods. It's basically a Korean masked dance drama, and the masks represent the characters needed to perform the roles in the ritual that are included in the ceremony. All of which to say that the origins of the masks is actually quite important to Korea. A symbol of something so positive and good, it's considered to be a national treasure. But Squid Game twisted it into something terrible and terrifying. It's yet another detail that subtly but surely doubles down on the entire vibe of the series. And it works. I wonder what Season 2 of Squid Game will have in store for us. Because we know that there's going to be more to this bloody story. But when? That's still a mystery. But it's been said that we shouldn't expect to see Season 2 of Squid Game before the end of 2023, while it's more likely going to be 2024. Oh well, that gives us more time to prepare for the emotional damage that will be thrown at us. But those were the shocking things you didn't know about Squid Game.